This episode of Talkin' About Rock is sponsored by Unleashed Music. Drawing on years of experience, contacts, and partnerships, Unleashed Music is uniquely positioned to platform, develop, and realize the vision of artists of all genres. Achieve your goals by partnering with Unleashed Music and take advantage of their decades of experience to help you create and execute your marketing campaign. Visit unleashedmusic.com for more info.
On this episode, Joe Stump from Alcatrazz.
Welcome to another episode of Talking About Rock. I'm Rob Edwards. Here we bring you rock interviews from veteran and upcoming artists. Subscribe on our YouTube channel to stay up to date. Follow us on our social media and our website, talkingaboutrock.com. In 1983, the band Alcatrazz was formed by Graham Bonnet, Jimmy Waldo, and Gary Shea. They released their first album, No Parole from Rock and Roll, and it spent 18 weeks on the Billboard 200 album charts. The band also featured a previously unknown Yngwie Malmsteen as their lead guitarist for a year, who was then replaced by Steve Vai. Vai then left to join David Lee Roth's band in 1986 and was then replaced by Danny Johnson. He was eventually replaced by Joe Stump. Multiple attempts to reform Alcatrazz in the following years were unsuccessful. Eventually, Bonnet reformed his version of the band as Alcatrazz, featuring Graham Bonnet, with guitarist Howie Simon and bassist Tim Luce, and they toured Japan. Following an internal disagreement and split in 2020, there are currently two separate and distinct Alcatrazz lineups. Alcatrazz then recruited vocalist Doogie White following conflicts regarding the band's management. In March of 2024, the band announced vocalist Doogie White had departed the band to focus on his solo career and was being replaced by Warlord vocalist Giles Lavery. Then, in May 2025, Alcatrazz announced they had signed with Brave Words Records and are planning to release a new album in 2026. Next, we chat with guitarist Joe Stump here on Talking About Rock. Okay, let's welcome from Alcatrazz, Joe Stump. Hey, brother, how are you, man?
Good, always good.
Excellent.
As I always say, being Joe Stump's a pretty good deal, so I can't complain.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. You've got quite the list of accolades here, my friend. Definitely. Wanted to bring our audience a little bit up to speed, shall we say, with some of your stuff here. So you're named one of the fastest shredders of all time in Guitar One, and then in Guitarist magazine as one of the top 20 shredders of all time. You're also a Berklee professor, man, specializing in hard rock, shred, and speed metal.
All correct so far, I guess, yes.
Definitely. And your album, obviously, Night of the Living Shred, was a Grammy semifinalist for Best Instrumental Rock Album. Like you're saying, not too bad of a deal being Joe Stump, right?
Yeah, that was eons ago. Yeah, that was like my second solo record, you know? So I don't know how many I've done since then, something like 14 or something.
Yeah, you've done quite a lot for sure.
Yeah,
and now you've recorded an updated version of Island in the Sun for Alcatrazz. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, those guys were talking about. I really had no idea this was going on, but they said they were talking about like re-recording some of the classic tracks. And I was like, cool, because I love the No Parole record. I wore that out when it came out.
Right.
There's no offense to Steve, but Disturbing the Peace, not so much, or Dangerous Games, I never even actually heard. But no Parole, I love that record. So it was a treat trying to play some of those tunes.
Yeah, and kind of revisit that. Yeah, and I think you guys are working on a whole album that's going to be coming out, a whole new album. Is that correct?
Yeah, there'll be a new record, but probably not until 26.
That's a 26.
Because we've released Alcatrazz with various lineups has released 3 records since 2019. So then there'll be a brand new studio record probably in 2026, fairly early.
Yeah, there's definitely quite a list, like you're saying, of lineup changes you guys went through, back and forth, different things. I think you jumped in way back with Graham when he was reforming the band at one point, right?
Yes, because Graham had like the Graham Bonnet Band, and then they wanted to relaunch Alcatrazz, so they were looking for the right guitar player. And then they contacted me, and they asked me if I was interested. I said, yeah, absolutely. And there wasn't really an audition or anything like that. I just went down and played. It was like a formality, and the whole thing fell together.
Yeah, I was watching a quick interview with Jimmy and Gary back in the day. Said they're looking for you, and they're just looking through internet clips of different guitar players. They really couldn't find anybody. They really had to kind of look hard, and then they found you, and they're like, boom, this was it. This is what we're gonna do.
Yeah, it kind of worked out. Pretty much that's the way it worked out. They got in touch with me, and yeah, I've been doing it since 2019. And 2019, we did quite a bit of touring with Graham, like a ton. Europe, and then Australia, Japan, Europe again, the UK. So it was quite a heavy touring year.
Right. And then there was that split there with Graham. He left, and now, just for clarification, there's still 2 versions of Alcatrazz. Is that right?
No.
Okay.
No, Graham Graham was talking about doing something, but I think he was just kind of doing that to because he might have been upset that we got Doogie. So he was just kind of throwing that out there, but he never really did anything or put anything together. And I believe now he's just pretty much exclusively doing his solo thing.
Just the solo stuff at this point. Gotcha. Yep. So I definitely like the new updated version of Al and His Son. Very cool, man. So I want to take a quick break. We'll play the track, and we'll come right back here with you. We'll be right back with Joe Stump on Talking About Rock. Okay, we're back here on Talk About Rock with Joe Stump from Alcatrazz, man. Very cool. You guys are updating some of the original material. Very, very cool. And, we went through some of your accolades earlier. You've also written a couple different books on the shred subject as well over the years, man.
Yes, I'm on top of everything. I'm not only an associate professor. I'm a published author as well. But yeah, I have like Joe Stump's Metal Guitar Chop Shop, and I have an arpeggio book, and I'm glad they're done. But I really do. I enjoy doing books? No,
No.
it's. Yeah, well, I mean, you have to notate all the music, which I don't mind, and then you have to record all the music, which I don't mind, but then you have to write all the text. So writing the text for describing the techniques and everything, that's like homework, and for me, school's definitely out. So that part of it's kind of painstaking, but I'm glad it's over.
Yeah, definitely. That would take a lot to do that. I know a lot of folks now are like, they're coming out with, retrospective books, kind of career look back things. A lot of different people are kind of releasing stuff like that. You've ever thought of putting anything like that together, or?
No. No, that would be a lot of work as well. There's been talk of me doing, another, shred guitar, metal guitar, neoclassical guitar book, but with a UK-based company. But when they approached me, the way they would do that, I wouldn't. But the thing that attracted me to that was I wouldn't have to do the text. They were going to do it. They're just gonna, have me talk about the various things in the book, and they would put all the text together through Zoom. Zoom recordings. That's something that could be in the pipes for the future. As much as I don't want to do another book. Records are a whole other story. And plus, when you're recording stuff for a book, it's not the same juice and the same kind of vibe as when you're recording a solo for a record or something. You're recording example number 4. And so it's just very technical, and you have to be, of course, quite meticulous in everything. I mean, as always. So it's a good amount of work.
Yeah, definitely. Do you guys have a working title for the upcoming album at all, or anything you could share with us about that? Or
no, nothing. We're just putting all the tunes together. I'm always writing stuff. On the last 2 records, but I wrote a bunch of stuff on Born Innocent as well. And then I wrote quite a bit of the stuff on both 5 and Take No Prisoners. I probably on both of those records probably wrote 80 to 85% of the stuff.
Yeah, Born Innocent did really good for you guys. There's a lot of good reviews on that for sure.
Yeah, that was an interesting record. They had a bunch of what happened with that record was, this is before I joined the band. They already had things in place, and they didn't have a guitar player yet. But they were like, well, let's get in touch with a few people that used to play with Graham, and we'll ask them to contribute a tune. So they got Dario Molo, who played with Graham when him and Don Airey did some things together, and then they got Chris, Chris and Pelletieri. They got Chris to do a track, and this was all like kind of put in place before I got in the picture. And then they had Steve I contributed a track, Dirty Like the City, but I actually played all the guitars on it, with Steve's tune. So they gave me the demo of it with Steve playing, and then I deciphered it all, and and kind of stay, even though I don't play like that at all, kind of kept it true to form. Almost sounded like a Vaish kind of post David Lee Roth kind of vibe.
Yeah, are you working on any solo stuff yourself? You putting anything together coming up, or?
Yes. Well, I was yes. Well, I have a bunch of things. I have a new. I was on sabbatical from the college, and I didn't have any touring, so I recorded a brand new solo record, and I'm not sure when that's coming out. And then I have another band, Joe Stump's Tower of Babel, which is like a rain, like a rainbow deep purplish kind of thing with all killer European players. Joe Amori from Nightmare and old Nightmare singer, plus sings with King Crown. He's like the French Dio. He sings. Maestro Mysterio that plays in Bruce Dickinson's Mandrake project plays keys. Mark Cross that used to be with Firewind, and he did a stint with the Scorpions and Halloweens. He's on drums. He's a powerhouse. So that record, the single came out back in April, and the new record's coming out next month. So if you love Purple and Rainbow and that kind of stuff, you're gonna love that record. So I got my hands full. I got my solo thing. I got the Alcatrazz action, and then I have Tower of Babel as well.
Yeah, definitely a busy guy. And it looks like Alcatrazz is going to be hitting the road here in Europe later this year with the Girls' School, right?
Yeah, with the Girls' School ladies. We've toured with the ladies, the ladies many times. They're awesome. They always bring it. And we have a lot of fun, and it's an interesting package because it's so different and stuff. But they're legendary, and especially like they know that I'm a huge a Blackmore fanatic, so they're Kim's always telling me Richie Blackmore stories and stuff because they did quite a bit of touring with quite a bit of touring with Rainbow, and they did some touring with Purple as well. That's happening. I think there's a bunch of Scandinavian dates in November, and then it rounds off with a bunch of Europe in the end of November, beginning of December.
Can we look forward to any U.S. dates coming up? You guys working on any of that,
No, we did a U.S. tour this past year with it was a 3-band package. It was Girls' School, Alcatrazz, and Lillian Axe. So we didn't have a night liner, so we did the tour in 2 different legs. We did an East Coast leg, and that was, I want to say that was like that was March/April of last year, and then at the very end of the year, like October, November, we did a West Coast leg. So and where are you located at?
I'm in Western New York.
Oh, Western New York. Yeah, we didn't get anywhere. Was there a New York date? Yeah, there was. The Gramercy in New York City. And that was about it as far as New York goes. There was one Montreal date, and then we would drive because I've played in Western New York and been to Western New York many times because I was in a symphonic power metal band, Holy Hell, and we were signed to Man and War's label and management company. So the headquarters there was in Auburn, New York. So I used to work there all the time. So I'm quite familiar with Western New York. Try to stay out of there in the winter months.
Yeah, right. Definitely want to do that. Definitely, yeah. So hopefully we can see some dates for you guys maybe coming up in the future. Have you noticed during the touring, when you're playing the U.S. dates, there seem to be parts of the U.S. that seem to be gravitating more toward the hard rock and metal? I know in some markets it's kind of a hard sell at this point, but other places it's like gangbusters,
There was some, like any tour, especially especially on the weekdays. There was a there was a show in Boise, Idaho. Were there many people there? It was like, I forget what day of the week it was, but it was like a Tuesday or something. So it wasn't exactly hopping, but there were some great dates. San Francisco date was awesome, and what? It sounds crazy. What was a good date is we played this small metal venue called Aces High in Salt Lake City, Utah, and it was just really cool. It reminded me because I'm from New York, and it reminded me of like a bar I'd hang out like a metal bar I'd hang out in the East Village back in in the late '80s, early '90s. It had all like those metal flags with the album covers and all kinds of cool old school metal posters and posters and pictures and stuff. So that was surprisingly a very cool show. but I mean, like, yeah. So it's kind of like a crapshoot. Depends on the day of the week. Depends on the city. But there were plenty of really, really good dates, and a few ones where attendance was a little on the light side. But overall, the whole thing came off pretty quite good. You know, especially all the Northeast dates were pretty hopping.
Yeah, because I just noticed that when there's like the fly-in dates, obviously during the week, that's hard for people to get to. You know, that might fit in good with the scheduling for the bands, but sometimes it's hard for folks to get to those weekday dates. You know, so
Yeah, and most of the shows were fairly early, which was kind of made it a little bit easier during the week. You know, with the 3 band package. I remember we were playing we were on first, and we were playing the Token Lounge in Detroit, and it was still light out when we were about to start. You know what I mean?
really, yeah.
Yeah,
I have heard people say, because obviously up in age a little bit, they like the shows to start a little earlier sometimes, right?
yeah. I remember growing up in New York when I was a kid, and I would go, and like I remember I was in this band Trash Broadway in New York, and we were signed to Torrid Records, and we were playing Sundance, which is a big club out on Long Island. And we were opening up for this band Shotgun Messiah at the time, and we had played a few dates with them at the time. We were on the same record label, and I remember we were going to start around midnight, and my parents and my sisters. My parents took a nap so they could go to the show. This was like in like 1990 or something like that, and then Shotgun Messiah didn't come out until like I think 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, well, like back in the day, you went out, didn't go out till like 11 o'clock at night.
Didn't
That's
go
when
out
everything
till, like,
started happening. Yeah,
11 and 12 o'clock exactly, and then the headliners would come on like anywhere between when I was a kid. I was a kid like growing up on Long Island watching that's when Twisted Sister was still playing Lou Reed and Bowie covers and stuff. I used to watch that. I used to watch them when I was like. And the drinking age was 18. I was in my first bar at like 15, playing in my first bar at like 15 and a half, 16.
yeah. How times have changed, man. And there's just not those cool vintage rock clubs around anymore like there used to be back in the day. Hard to find for sure.
Yeah, it's a thing of the past. Every once in a while, on a tour, you run into a few of those, which is always like, which is always awesome.
Yeah, very, very cool. We look forward, man, to the rest of the tracks you guys got coming out, definitely. And best of luck out there on the tour. You folks out there can get your tickets on bandsintown.com. You can check out all the Alcatrazz tour dates. So cool. Joe, thank you so much for speaking with us today, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, so this wraps up this episode of Talking About Rock. Thank you to my guest today, obviously, Joe Stump from Alcatrazz. And thank you to our sponsors, School of Rock North Buffalo and Unleashed Music. To our listeners, we hope you're out there doing your part, keeping the torch alive and supporting live music wherever you are.